What happens when a family stops communicating? What can members do when tension reaches a boiling point? Structural family therapy offers a unique solution by helping families learn to work together to achieve emotional healing. Let's meet the Ramirez family. Carlos Sr. and Erica are the parents of 3 adult children: Marisol, Lupe, and Carlos Jr. Please pause the video to learn more about their story. Structural family therapy emphasizes the role of family structures in the psychological health of its members. The approach is rooted in the idea that dysfunction within a family is most often related to structural elements rather than the characteristics of individual members, and that healthier boundaries can lead to a stronger family unit. In this video, we will focus on 3 key interventions in the structural family therapy model. The first is identifying and addressing coalitions, in which the therapist examines key coalitions or teams that negatively impact family interactions. The therapist then joins the family to see the world from the unique perspectives of its members, and then encourages members to enact conflicting interactions, which allows them to work through difficult issues in the family. In Session 1, Jessica begins her counseling work with the Ramirez family. She'll help members construct 2 treatment goals for therapy: improve communication and respect among members, and also to reduce the impact of negative coalitions by promoting healthier boundaries among members. Interventions will include identifying and examining coalitions, and at the end of the session, Jessica will educate members about her role in joining the family and what this might look like in therapy. An additional intervention is addressing the family's culture by engaging in dialogue about family traditions and acclimating Carlos Sr. to the counseling environment.
Hi, I want to welcome you all to our first session today. Let me begin by asking if it's okay if I address you by your first names, or would you prefer something else?
Sure.
Okay, and can you all let me know what brought you into therapy today?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. The way I see it, we've kind of drifted apart as a family, and we're hoping to maybe communicate a little better.
Could you say more?
Mom died 3 years ago, and I guess she was like the glue that held us together. Now Marisol and Dad aren't getting along, and it's like we're all going to our own corners, and just trying to avoid the conflict.
It sounds like there's tension in the family. And what do you think is causing this tension, Carlos?
I don't know. My daughter and I, we can't seem to get along.
Would you be willing to elaborate more on that?
Well, she's chosen this lifestyle that I just don't approve of. I've always been taught that a boy goes with a girl and a girl goes with a boy. I was married to my wife for like 25 years, and my dad was married to my mom longer than that. Marisol, she's changed all that.
It's not a choice, Dad. This is who I am. We've gone back and forth and back and forth again. It's always the same. You don't understand, or you don't want to understand.
I guess I'm like more traditional. We always do things like a traditional Mexican family. That's the way I was brought up.
Dad, we're not a traditional Mexican family. When I think of tradition, the women do the cooking and the men are the breadwinners. I mean, in this family, Marisol and Lupe make the most money. Lupe is out of the house for most of the days at a time because of her job. And look at me, I cook half of the meals more than any of my sisters. I clean up more than anybody too. And my girlfriend stays at our house whenever she wants. But when Marisol brings her girlfriend Dana over, I mean, like, man, that's different. they both get the cold shoulder.
So, Carlos, it sounds like tradition is very important to you, even though there are some non traditional ways of doing things in your family. Would you say that's right? And I can imagine that coming to therapy may not be something that you would consider traditional. So I think it means a lot that you would do something outside your cultural tradition to be here in therapy.
To be honest, I'm not comfortable being here.
The way I see it, I need to do all I can to support Dad. It's been so hard for him since Mom died. And I have sympathy for Marisol. And yeah, I know she gets a cold shoulder sometimes. But other times, I don't know, she gets quiet and just shuts everybody out.
You got that right.
Marisol, I noticed you shook your head just then. Can you say what was going through your mind?
Yeah, it's like Dad and Lupe are this team, and I just get disapproval from them all the time. Carlitos has always been there for me, so I guess we're on a team too.
Two different teams?
Yeah, but in the end, I'm always alone in this thing, especially since he's off with his girlfriend most of the time. You know, Dad and Lupe don't want to accept me or respect who I am. I always feel better when I'm with Dana, like because she understands what I'm going through. We've been talking about moving away even to a different state. But when I bring it up, Dad just cuts it off. I won't hear it.
So, what are you hearing Marisol say now?
She wants to leave us? To leave our family? I know she's frustrated. We are all frustrated. I'm frustrated.
Okay, I guess this is a good place for us to talk about what to do about this frustration, or more specifically, what goals you would like to work on so you're not so frustrated and can maybe communicate a little better. But before I do that, I'd like to summarize what I'm hearing to make sure that I'm understanding everything okay. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Some of the things that are most important to this family are family traditions and being heard and respected by family members. But that doesn't always work out because it's kind of like there are two separate teams fighting each other. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I guess so. I just want things to go smoothly with the family, which hasn't been the case since Mom died.
And what would need to happen for things to work more smoothly with this family? What would you like to accomplish in our time together?
Well, something needs to be done. I would say we want to get along better, communicate better. I don't know. Like, learn to work through all of this conflict instead of always just running away from it.
Sounds like better communication would be a good goal to work on. How does that sound to everyone? Okay, before we close, a few days ago I emailed you some information about my counseling approach, and I'd like to review that now. In my work, I believe in joining the family to help families achieve their goals in therapy. Of course, I'm not a real member of your family, but by joining you, we will communicate in a way that will hopefully help us solve problems together. I'd also like to rearrange the seating order because I've found that this can sometimes help families communicate better as well. Any questions about this before we close the session?
As the session closes, Jessica checks in with the Ramirez family about their impressions of the first meeting together. She also asks that members keep in mind the therapy goals discussed in the session and be ready to talk about them further in their future work together. A week later, counseling reconvenes. In this session, Jessica will work with the family on identifying and examining coalitions by changing the seating order in the room. She will begin joining the family and also encourage enactment of a problem that occurred earlier in the week. Finally, culture will be explored as Marisol discusses her sexual identity.
I'd like to check in with everyone to see how things have been going over the past week.
I think overall it's been about the same. Maybe we're trying to be a little nicer to each other, so that's a good sign. And we did have dinner a few nights ago together, but we kind of got into it and it kind of got serious.
Would it be okay to discuss this in today's session?
Sure.
Does anyone else have ideas of what we might talk about today? Okay, last week we discussed the teams that had developed in this family. I mentioned that I would switch things around to help change and maybe even improve some of the ways you communicate, so it doesn't feel so much like one team is fighting against the other. I'll start by having everyone change positions in the room.
To address the two teams or coalitions, Jessica directs family members to their new seating positions in the room. Carlos Jr. will now sit with his sister Lupe, while Marisol sits alongside her father.
How does everyone feel about this new seating order? What stands out for you?
I would say it's kind of interesting. Every time we're together as a family, I'm always next to Dad. And that's even when my aunts and cousins are over.
Is this okay for you?
It's different. I don't think it's good or bad. It's just different.
Okay, anyone else have any thoughts about the seating change?
It's okay. Hey, didn't you say that you wanted to join our family?
Yeah.
Well, then you're gonna have to help me out in the kitchen.
Hey, you're the master chef, Carlos. I can't compete with that. But I'm glad you mentioned that I'll be joining your family. What would be your expectations of me joining the family, Carlos?
I guess being respectful. Respect is important to me.
Yeah, and we kind of tiptoe around things in this family. If someone offends someone else, we kind of just retreat into our own corners. And if you were to join our family, you'd probably need thick skin. Like if somebody jumped on your throat, you could take it.
And if I had to stand up for myself, Carlos, could I still be respectful of the family?
I guess so. It would probably take a little getting used to, but I'm okay with it.
Okay, as I shift my role here, if I say the wrong thing or if things become uncomfortable, would you be willing to let me know?
Yeah, I think that's fine. But I'm still not sure what it means that you have joined the family. Like, what does that mean?
Good point. Of course, I won't actually be joining your family, but I would be looking at things more as an insider so I can understand your viewpoints better. What do you say we try it out and see how my new role develops? You can give me feedback to let me know how I'm doing. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, Lupe, a few minutes ago you talked about your family dinner and how things got kind of serious. Could you say more about this?
Yeah, I think Carlitos cooked and Marisol helped out. And we all had dinner, made some small talk. And I think things were going okay. And you said something that cracked everyone up. What'd you say?
Dad's a dump truck. I'll never be able to cook enough for him.
A man's gotta eat, right?
I'm with you, Carlos.
Then Carlos's girlfriend asked about Dana and where she's from. Then Marisol said something. What was it, Mari?
I said she was born here, like all of us were. And then there was this silence. When Dana's name was mentioned, Carlitos was in the kitchen. It was just the two of you. Dead silence. And I felt alone. Time to change the subject.
Mari, I didn't see it that way. Dana wasn't there, but if she had been there, she would have spoken up for herself and talked about growing up here just like you and I did.
Okay, but maybe I was being too sensitive. But you changed the subject before I could say anything.
Happened pretty fast.
When I got back to the table from the kitchen, it was like silence. It was like I knew that they'd been talking about Dana.
I was uncomfortable.
Why, Dad? Why is it so hard to talk about her?
Tradition. Still so hard for me to accept your guys' relationship.
Respect is important too, though.
Yes, it is.
You got that right.
Respect for the family. Last week, Alito said we're not traditional, at least not totally. But we can be respectful, right?
All right. I didn't say anything about Dana while we were eating. But what could I have said?
I don't know. Maybe just talk about what part of town she grew up in, where she lives, like what she does for a living.
Well, Dad's lived a certain way for so long, and it's hard to change that overnight.
It must be hard for Marisol, too.
I was thinking the same thing.
But if it's so hard for you, Marisol, why not change? Why not just date guys? Be with men instead of women. And I guess deep down, I wonder what I could have done differently as a father so that you could.
So what? So I'd be like everyone else?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's better just not to rock the boat.
Let me get this straight. You want Marisol to be like everybody else so that you and Dad can feel more comfortable?
Look, I'm gay. It's who I am. It's who Dana is.
It's your identity. It's who you are.
Dad, if you knew that for all of this time Marisol had gone through all of this crap just for being who she was, wouldn't you want to do something to, I don't know, protect her or at least make her feel better?
Hey, I paid the bills. I put food on the table.
And is that enough?
I guess not.
You've done a lot for all of us, Dad. You provided for us when we were kids, and you did the best you could to hold everything down when Mom died. I mean, there's nothing you could have done differently before. Maybe it's about what you can do now.
But maybe that goes both ways. You're putting Dad and me on the spot. But what can you do to change things?
That's a good question.
Okay, I can work harder not to shut down so fast. I got mad pretty fast when we ate dinner together a few nights ago. Maybe I could have spoken up for Dana instead of getting so mad when everyone stopped talking.
Good first step, maybe?
Maybe. But I still feel like, I don't know.
Maybe it's a good idea to take a breath and reflect on what's happening here.
No. I know I'm uncomfortable, but this is helpful. Let's keep going.
The Ramirez family continues to talk about the incident that occurred at dinner a few nights before. Once this is done, Jessica asks members to process their thoughts and feelings about this discussion.
It was kind of tense. I was uncomfortable. But what Marisol was saying made sense. It helped me see things a little differently.
Yeah. And when you talked about joining our family, I remember thinking, good luck with that. But it was kind of cool that you didn't really seem so much like a therapist, but, just one of us. And I thought that was really helpful.
After Jessica receives feedback from members about the session, she suggests that for homework, the Ramirez family maintain the new seating order during family gatherings and practice engaging in dialogue together over the coming week. Over the next few sessions, the Ramirez family continues to work on improving communication among members both during and outside of counseling meetings. By joining the family, Jessica has helped Carlos Sr., Carlos Jr., Marisol, and Lupe reduce the tension from the coalitions that divided them. In Session 6, Marisol's girlfriend Dana is invited to share her insights with the Ramirez family.
It's good to see you all, and I want to welcome Dana to our group. Dana, what are your thoughts about being here today?
I guess Marisol prepared me a little. I know you guys have been coming here for a while. She asked me to come, so I'm here.
It wasn't just Marisol. I wanted you here too. I've said this before, but tradition is important to me. When I was a kid growing up, I heard about people who were homosexual, and people really treated them bad, and they got hurt. When I heard Marisol was like that, I guess I was afraid that she'd get hurt too. But I also gotta say that, if I'm being honest, homosexuality is against my religious beliefs. That's why I've been distant to both of you.
Honestly, I can see that. Gay people get criticized, and even though I haven't been physically hurt, some of my friends have. And it's been confusing at times, especially when I was a teenager. And I'm a person of faith, just like you, Carlos. In fact, my faith has really helped me accept who I am and even be proud of who I am.
Man, I'm glad this is finally out on the table. When Mari came out, is it okay if I say this? Okay, when Mari came out, she came out to me and Mom. I was like, yes! But Mom was really quiet.
I haven't talked too much about this, but yeah, when I brought it up to Mom, she was like, as long as you're happy. And that was hard for me. And it hurt and at first, but there came a point where I just knew she had my back. I was confused. I was coming out. And yet Mom never judged me. And even though, as long as you're happy, was as far as she would go, it was enough for me.
It's like that was the best she could do.
Yeah. I don't have that anymore. Mom's gone. Dana has been really helpful to fill that void, and Carlitos has been great too. But I need more from all of you. Just knowing you have my back.
I got your back, sis.
Me too. It's hard for me, but me too.
Thank you, Dad.
Yes!
Yeah, it's great for us to just talk about important stuff in this family. It's awesome to hear Marisol and Dana kind of teach us about who they are. And, for the most part, we've listened, which is really cool.
Yeah, I second that. I think a few weeks ago I said something and there was just silence and it felt uncomfortable. And I realized that's what we always do as a family. We don't say what's on our minds and we just go back to our teams. Dad and me, Marisol and Carlitos, or just off to our rooms.
Boy, sometimes it's back and forth again.
Yeah. And it's not really a criticism, but I just hope this kind of communication can keep going on after therapy is over.
Dana, you're welcome at our house anytime. And I hope that I'm speaking for all of us.
But is that enough?
I like that question, and I guess I'll return to the therapist role for just a moment. So, how can this level of honest discussion keep going in the future? What would need to happen? Dana, since you're new to the session, I'll ask you this question, and I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot.
Not at all. I had a talk with Carlos a few weeks ago, and I think just doing more of that is good.
And I'd like to check in with you, Lupe. We haven't heard as much from you today.
Honestly, it's been cool just to listen and not be the one that always has to break the silence. I guess now that Dad's, more understanding, more open, I feel a weight off my shoulders. I always thought I need to keep things together for the family. And like you said, these counseling sessions will end soon, but I hope we'll be willing to keep talking after they're over.
So actually, I think that's an excellent segue for our next homework assignment. Why don't you continue this discussion, maybe over dinner would be a good place, where all of you, including Dana, could talk about workable ways to keep this dialogue going.
In closing, Jessica summarizes the session and asks family members to reflect on the progress they've made in counseling. Noting improvements in the treatment goals they set in the first session, she will also begin a conversation on termination of therapy and how family members would like to conduct their final sessions together.